What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube, and today I've got some football focus. First of all, please bear with my new setup here. Obviously, you can see I've got a brand new table. It is much nicer and more repaired than my old table, but it's also much smaller, so I'm trying to find a new setup that works. So if you guys like this setup, please let me know. If you want me to try to move around and do something else, please let me know in the comments below. Please stay active so I know what I can do better for you guys. But I brought you guys last week the offensive Steelers season in review. I took the 2022 season and I talked about player stats, team stats, and kind of where we started and how we ended up and what we could be doing differently going into next season. Taking a tally of this past season going into next year. So go check that video out if you have not seen it already. But today I'm doing defense. I want to break down some team stats for you guys with some rankings overall. Then I want to go into some individual player stats and then talk about kind of the holes and the needs and the things we need going into next season. Now, this is not going to be a draft video because I'll be doing draft predictions and projections and want list soon. I'm also going to be doing free agency lists, who our top targets in free agency should be, as well as who are the guys we should keep and cut in our free agent list. I'll be doing all that coming forward 1 to 2 times a week with Steeler videos for you guys all off season long. But right now, I want to look at 2022 season in review for the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, starting with team numbers. So here are some of the numbers that I found that jumped out to me off the page. Number one, 61.2 completion percentage for other teams in our passing defense. That ranks 6th in the NFL. So completion percentage, Pittsburgh doing a pretty nice job, especially in the cornerback department, covering receivers, top 6 in the NFL. And again, most things, just like I said on the offense, most things that you'll find on our defense started kind of weak and finished kind of strong. And I think that overall, the overall review player-wise, you have to say is that our defense kind of rises and falls with the health of 2 guys, namely TJ Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick. When Minkah misses time, the whole defense tackles worse and covers worse. But the bigger kind of make or miss player on this team is TJ Watt. Watt gets hurt every season for a couple games. This year it was close to half the season, and we saw how much difference this team has when TJ is out there. He is, in my opinion, the single biggest difference maker on the defensive side of the ball for any team in the entire league. He is the MVP of this team on defense and overall. When he's not out there, you see a drop in a lot of guys. When he's playing, you see how much better Highsmith gets. You see how much better Cam is. The whole D-line, the whole back coverage, the whole amount of time quarterbacks have against us, all kind of hinges on TJ Watt's health. So you'll see at the start of the season when Watt wasn't healthy, toward the end of the year when Watt got healthy, and how the numbers improved. So 61.2% completion percentage, 6th in the league. Passing yards overall, not great for us. We gave up in total 3,779 passing yards, which ranks us 20th in the league out of 32. So we're in the bottom half of the league on our way climbing upward. Got to get those numbers better. We saw a lot of injuries in the secondary this year as well. That makes a big difference. Passing touchdowns. Here's our worst stat for our defense. 29 passing touchdowns allowed by our defense, 30th in the league out of 32. One of the worst passing touchdown defenses in the league. We saw some bigger and better teams like Philadelphia, namely, really bullying guys like Ahkello Witherspoon, really making our corners look bad against those big, strong, physical receivers. We did get better on that toward the end of the year. Once Ahkello got hurt, we did bring in Cleveland's ex-corner who didn't play for us, but namely Sutton and Wallace did play better toward the end of the year. We'll touch on that going forward. But yes, 30th in the league in passing touchdowns. We have to get better in that. Total opposite now as far as interceptions. 20 interceptions for the team. That is tied for first with the 49ers in the entire NFL. 20 picks ties us for first. The last couple of years, interceptions have been a big positive for us. And this year with 20, off the back of Minkah Fitzpatrick with 6, shows us that our guys are opportunists in the air. Not a lot of fumble recoveries or even forced fumbles, but interceptions were a big strong point for us in the splash play zone for defense this year. Looking more now at the rushing, we gave up 1,838 total rush yards this year, which is 9th in the league. So top 10 for rushing defense, which obviously, like I said, got a lot better when Minkah was healthy, being our top tackler, and once TJ was healthy, being our top rusher. Even better stats in the run game, 4.2 yards per carry for opposing teams. That is 6th in the NFL, so a top 6 finish there for us. That feels really good. Rushing touchdowns allowed, just 7 in the entire league. That is tied for first in the NFL. So rushing yards, we finished top 10 in all the major categories. That feels really good. Now, overall, again, for the team, we'll kind of take a look at holes a little bit later as far as what we need to improve upon. But obviously, pass rush needs to get stronger. You want to get better at passing defense, which means corners and getting a better pass rush. So it kind of goes into both areas. Now, number one thing we have to do is keep TJ Watt healthy, because when Watt's healthy, not only is he number one as far as pressures and stuff go, but it makes Highsmith much, much better as a sack/tackle artist, and it makes Cam better. The entire front seven improves when TJ is healthy. You need more depth behind those guys too. That's going to be a big talking point later. Individual player stats here. Tackles, the top 4 tacklers on our team, this might surprise you. Number 1 is Miles Jack with 104 tackles. No big surprise there. That's what we brought him in to do. He was a big tackling NFL leader several times with Jacksonville, one of the top guys for them for years. Came in, led our team now as the only guy over 100 with 104 tackles. Didn't seem like he had that many games with a ton of tackles, but he was just always around the ball. He wasn't making a ton of splash plays, but he was getting the occasional tackle for a loss. He was tackling a lot, and he was pretty short tackler too. He wasn't getting a lot of forced fumbles. He wasn't getting gigantic hits, but he was a sure guy. He was the most sure tackler on this team. Minka, no big surprise with 96 tackles. You generally don't want your safety being one of your tackle leaders. That means guys are getting into the secondary, either on deep passes or running backs breaking tackles or finding holes. But Minka's always around the ball. He's the hardest hitter we have. He's the most sure player, in my opinion, as far as tackler goes on this team with 96. Number 3, the third tackler on this team is going to surprise you. That is Devin Bush. Devin Bush had 81 tackles this year. He did not seem like it. I only called his name a couple of times this year. I think he got 1 fumble recovery, was his big splash play. Didn't do a whole lot on defense. Didn't blow a lot of plays either, but didn't make a lot of plays, it seemed like. So him being third on the team in tackles is surprising. We're going to be losing that this offseason. But number 4 may surprise you in a good way. Robert Spillane, 79 tackles. So Spillane came in and took Bush's spot as our number 2 linebacker behind, inside linebacker behind Miles Jack, and finished just 2 tackles behind Bush, in spite of not playing as much early in the season. Toward the end of the year, Bush got injured, and then he just got benched flat out for Spillane with 79 tackles. So I think you're going to be seeing Jack and Spillane as your 2 main inside linebackers next season. I think we're going to bring Spillane back. That's an obvious choice for me. Letting Bush go somewhere else. He's already talked about wanting to play for our next player. He's been favoriting other teams' tweets and stuff like that, so I think we're going to lose Bush. But Jack and Spillane are a nice tackling duo as your starting ILBs. Mark Robinson, who showed us a lot of speed and power at the end of the season, is going to be our number 3, along with probably getting somebody in the draft, somewhere in the day 2 to day 3 rounds of the draft, adding an extra inside linebacker for those main 4 guys going forward. You want to get one guy who can really be a pass coverage guy. Of all 3 guys we have, Robinson, Spillane, and Jack, they're not pass coverage guys. They're downhill runners, they're tacklers, they're forced fumble guys, but they're not really coverage guys. So you want a coverage guy at your inside linebacker. But sacks, we had 3 guys to mention. 2 guys in double digits. That is Alex Highsmith with 14.5 and Cam with 10.5. TJ Watt comes in at 3rd with 5.5. Now, Watt with 5.5 seems kind of low, but of course he missed half the season, and he got double teamed and held a whole lot when he was in there. Now, I don't want to take anything away from Highsmith with his 14.5, because that's a very good number. He's probably the most underrated guy on the NFL sack leaders list this year with 14.5. But I will say that a lot of that comes from TJ Watt. Highsmith started the year, I think he had a 3-sack game and a 2-sack game in his first couple games of the season when TJ Watt was out there. Then Watt got hurt for about 5 or 6 games, and Highsmith was very, very quiet. And then when Watt came back toward the second half of the season, Highsmith started getting sacks again. So I don't want to diminish Highsmith's hard work. He's a very good, physical, quick guy who has a good first step. He gets around defenders. He finishes tackles. I like Highsmith a whole lot, but it's obvious that when you have the best NFL rusher on the other side, you're going to get open more. You're going to get single coverage more. You're going to get more opportunities. And Highsmith, to his credit, makes the most of those where a lot of guys don't. But I think you're seeing that Bud Dupree was always better with Watt, just like Highsmith is now for us. So nothing against him, but TJ Watt, in spite of his 5.5, shows on a lot of those 14.5 plays for Highsmith. And Cam, second year in a row with double-digit sacks with 10.5. He's a beast. He's been kind of alone on the defensive line for a lot of the season. Again, he shined a lot when Watt was back, but he's been the lone star now. A couple years ago, we saw that combination of Cam, Tyson Alualu at the nose tackle, and who was the other guy on the other side at the end? I'm forgetting his name right now. The guy that just retired for us last year. I'm forgetting his name right now. But we're seeing a big void now. That guy who I, for some reason, can't think of his name like an idiot, he retired on us. Stephon Tuitt. My God, I'm sorry, Stephon. But Tuitt retiring and Alualu just aging out and just not being effective on the field. Couldn't stay on the field, couldn't keep his job. Lost a lot of snaps to a lot of guys like Wormley, Ogunjobi, several other guys. DeMarvin Leal was in there. Loudermilk was in there. Montravius Adams took his spot for most of the season. So Alualu just kind of aging out and Tuitt retiring has left a big hole in our defensive line. Larry Ogunjobi's been an underrated guy for us, but you need more help at that nose tackle spot, which you'll see in the draft. But yes, so those are our three big sack guys. Tackle for a loss guys, well, you got Cam with 14, obviously a beast. Highsmith with 12, a lot of those in sacks. TJ Watt with 8, and Larry Ogunjobi popping in with 7. Ogunjobi wasn't healthy for the entire season, but when he played 3/4 of the year, he was very effective next to Cam as that number 2 defensive line guy who really got in there and made some nice plays. A few good pressures, several good tackles for a loss. Passes defensed and interceptions. We're looking at our secondary now. Cam Sutton, 15 passes defensed and 3 picks. Very solid season for him. He had a couple games like Philadelphia where he got picked on, but for the most part, I think he had a very good season. He is our highest profile free agent this year. I think you do whatever you can to get him back here. You can't afford to lose him like we lost Mike Hilton a few years ago. Cam Sutton, 15 defenses, 3 picks. Levi Wallace, a very nice addition to the team, especially late in the year. The second half of the season, Wallace was very good as our number 2 outside guy. 13 defenses, 4 picks. Minka Fitzpatrick, 11 passes defensed, 6 picks, and our only interception for a touchdown this year. So 11 defenses, 6 picks, and 1 touchdown. So the only scoring play by Minka, and also leading our team in interceptions. So those are our 3 big secondary guys, and there are a few questions in the secondary going forward. Forced fumbles, we had a bunch this year. The one nice play from the veteran who I'm losing is that I just said his name a few seconds ago, and Chris Wormley had 1 forced fumble and a fumble recovery on the same play. That was his one big play this year. But forced fumbles this year, Highsmith had 5, and a lot of that goes with blindsiding the quarterback, getting the sack, forced fumbles, but 5 of those for Highsmith. So you're seeing a lot of the same names here. You're seeing Watt, you're seeing Highsmith, you're seeing Cam, you're seeing Spillane, Ogunjobi, Minka. Those are going to be your main guys going forward on defense. I think it's important to build on what we had at the end of last season, allowing, under 15 points a game for that second half of the year. I think it's important. Obviously, we have guys like Watt and Minka and Cam back for another season, but Cam is on his way out. Like I said, we just lost Tuitt, who was a very underrated D lineman. Tyson Alualu, who's been one of the best nose tackles in the league for the past 5 or 6 years, is now, well, at least 3 or 4 years, is going to be retiring soon. He has fallen off big time. I think he's gone after this season. So, and Cam is starting to age out too. Cam is still a high productivity guy who we want to give as much money to as possible, but he's only going to have 1 or 2 more years left before he retires too. He is quite up there in years played now, and his body is taking a toll. So the line is going to need a couple extra guys. You're going to want to see what you have in guys like Loudermilk. Can he be a consistent starter? He's shown flashes, but he hasn't stayed on the field much. DeMarvin Leal showed he can play on any spot in the D-line, any of those 3 outside or inside. But where's he going to fit best in the NFL? And is his speed going to translate to pass rushing or tackling on the inside? What's going to be his best spot? Montravius Adams, is he worth bringing back for another season? I would say yes. I think he's a very solid role player. Who do you draft? You're going to have to draft at least 1 spot at D tackle next season going forward. Is Wormley going to be a guy you want to re-sign? He came off of a 8-sack season 2 years ago, and this year couldn't stay healthy. Made that 1 big play this year, and that was about it. So you got questions on the interior. You also want to get somebody behind Watt and Highsmith to be your 3rd main pass rusher. Nothing against Malik Reed, who was okay when he was in there this year, but he wasn't really a guy you can trust to do long-term starting, in my opinion. You know that Watt and Highsmith are both going to miss some time with injury. They just do every year. It's just an obvious thing. They miss time every year. So you want to get a third guy, and we just did re-sign Quincy Roche, the guy we drafted from Miami 2 years ago, who we released in preseason, who I was really against releasing. We just re-signed him. He was started for the Giants for a while, got a few nice sacks and big plays for the Giants, and then went elsewhere, and now is back in Pittsburgh. So I would like to see what he can do. Give this guy a full preseason to play with us again and see if he can make splash plays. He was an underrated guy. I think he was a 6th or 7th round draft pick who I had a 3rd or 4th round grade on. I was big on him. He had a good preseason for us. We cut him because Jameer Jones played well. And then we re-signed Jameer Jones again this season and then released him, and now we re-signed Quincy Roche. So a lot of guys like those guys and Tuzar Skipper have been on and off the roster for a while, and no one's been able to stay and show any kind of longevity for this team. But I would like to see if guys like Malik Reed or Roche could step up and do a little more for us on the outside. We're going to have to draft somebody maybe in the late rounds to see if we get some more depth there. So the point is, we got most of our starters here, but you want at least a nose tackle, you want at least a cornerback, you want at least outside linebacker depth, you want at least inside linebacker depth. Those 4 spots are especially important, and there are questions at safety depending on who we re-sign. We have both KZ and Edmonds, who we got last year, who play very good together in those 3 safety sets along with Minka. 2 veterans like that get better and better playing alongside Minka in those 3 safety sets. What do you want to do as far as next season? Do you want to re-sign one of those guys? Can you afford to bring both back in? Or do you want to bring one in and start them alongside Minka and then draft a safety or sign a free agent for cheap? So lots of depth questions, not a lot of starter questions, but you do want to bring in a day one guy at corner and possibly even at nose tackle to kind of shore up those spots. But all in all, we're looking pretty good. Rush defense is top 10 in all the major categories. Pass defense is not great number-wise, but is on the rise. And all the guys that are high on the stat list in these categories are back next season, minus the certainty of Cam Sutton. So re-sign Cam Sutton, and let's get higher moving forward. But toward the end of the season, Pittsburgh was on the upper half of that defensive side. And along with the rise of our running game, receivers, and quarterback, we have a high-powered offensive nucleus that we don't have to draft too many guys for. You want 1 or 2 offensive line guys on offense in the draft, and everything else, you can prioritize defense. So what do you guys think of our defense by the numbers this year? What number surprised you and what didn't? Who would you go after in the draft and free agency, both for our team, and who would you sign to bring in? Tell me these things in the comments below. I'll be bringing you guys draft projections, free agency, keeping cuts, targets, all these things coming up. So stay with me on the Steelers draft coverage all off season long. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like these deep dive by the numbers videos, and tune back in. If you have not seen the offensive one, I posted that last week. Go check it out. I'll be bringing you guys free agency stuff very, very soon. So stay with me. Go Steelers.